This story, the one you're about to hear, I remember hearing some years ago and being completely undone by it. In it, you see the heart of a father, the power in choosing connection, and the strength of keeping your love on. Love is greater than fear, greater than hurt, greater than hopelessness. Love changes everything.
This session is about connection over conflict, and we're going to take our time as we process through a couple of stories about some dear relationships of both my mom and I, and it's about our fathers. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah. I got a stepdad when I was 6. He's been my stepdad my whole life, and we love each other, but there were times that we struggled pretty hard. And he married into our family, and my mom had 4 kids. I was the youngest, so he took on this big task, but we were disconnected all the time, fighting all the time. I ran away in high school, was put in a foster home because of a big fight we had together. And I had shared earlier how I learned to try and connect with him through reading books and things like that. But there was just so much pain in our relationship. And then I got saved, and I'm trying to work it out and work through forgiveness. And what really happened finally, what really broke us free, was I learned that he's doing, and he did, the best job he knew how to do. He just wasn't very good at it. He didn't have good examples. He didn't have the Bible. He didn't have friends and Christians in his life to help him change. He was just like, this is how I am. So who's going to change? It's going to be me. And so I went to work instead of being mad at him all the time, because he would walk through a situation with me, even as an adult Christian, and I would just be so upset that he wasn't performing the way I thought he should as a dad. Mm-hmm. So finally, through forgiveness, what I did was I lowered my expectations. I'm expecting less of him so that when he produces a lower level of parenting skill, I'm not mad at him. I didn't live mad at him anymore because I don't expect, and it sounds bad when I say it, but it was what let him off the hook. We were talking about adult children earlier, and this is my relationship with my dad as an adult. I had to learn, okay, rather than live in conflict and disconnect, I will lower what I expect from you so that we can be in relationship together.
A fun thing that, not a lot of people know is that if you look at your relationship now, which,
yes.
I mean, obviously we had some of the closest views of it, I don't know that I would have known that as a child because you did such a great job of still pursuing connection, even though he was constantly, making it harder for you. And the fact that is that there's 4 of your siblings total with all of you, and then he has his own children. And out of all those children, he lived with you.
Yeah.
For years, and you were the place where obviously he felt safe enough and most loved and most pursued in connection to just stay there. And so, I mean, that's an amazing testimony.
Yeah. I do love him. Yeah. I really, truly love him. And I don't think I could say that early on in our lives. I was in conflict with him all the time. And I really do love him. You had a very different kind of dad. And you made the point where people could look at my life with my dad now and not see the residue of our life together, the hard spots. And we have a great family. We love being together, but we've hit some hard spots. One of the times in Brittany's life where she came home, I think she was probably 17, and she walked through the kitchen. Danny was eating a sandwich. He'd made a sandwich, and it was later in the evening after youth group or something. And you walked in, and you walked past him, and you said this statement, "You know what, Daddy? You're the first man I ever fell in love with." And you just kept bopping along to your room, and Danny almost choked on his sandwich because that statement was, oh my gosh, the responsibility of a dad is you are the first person this girl's going to fall in love with. And the reason why that was such an amazing statement from you was because a year prior, we went through probably the hardest conflict that we ever had as parents, and it was with our oldest child, you paved the way. We had some sense, but this was the big whammy, and we're the Silks. We're the family life pastors. We were teaching this stuff, and yet, wow, it was a tornado.
It was, I threw you for a loop on that one. I was 16 at the time, and we had just moved from Weaverville, and, Weaverville was my life, and I didn't think that the world could be any better than Weaverville.
In Weaverville.
I know.
Friends.
Yeah, friends, all of that, my school, that was kind of who I was a bit at 16 for sure. And so here I am, I've been moved from my world to Reading. And even before that, I was told we were moving, but, it was kind of like you can't really communicate with anyone just yet. We were pastors on staff, so it was just kind of the transition. But you wanted to let me in. So I remember kind of having this secret almost of us leaving, and just the where of my friends, next year, what we're going to do when we're seniors, and knowing that wasn't going to happen for me kind of opened the door for some stuff. And so here I am, we've moved, and the internet is all such a horrible and wonderful thing. I end up getting on the internet, and I get in these chat rooms, and I found this boy who was interested in me. And so we kind of started this dialogue that led to private chats, that led to late night phone calls, which somehow I also had met a boy named Ben previous to that. I lived in Australia, so those late night phone calls, were just different time zone. It didn't seem as odd. But really, I was just kind of hiding. I hid a lot during that season in what I was doing and even how I was feeling and what I was needing. The day that we were supposed to meet, we are meant to meet up at a park in Reading, and he lived in Sacramento, and so he drove down and met me. And I had told you I was going to some kind of harvest party or something that day with another friend. And so
You lied?
I did. I totally lied. And I am gone for a while, and you started, I think, texting me or calling me. I don't know if text was then.
No text.
Yeah, I think you started calling me, and I didn't answer, but you're like, well, whatever, not a big deal. And then you tried again, but I'm not answering at all, which, you always say a 16-year-old not answering their phone.
Yeah.
That's not too common. So eventually you start to kind of have this panic, I'm guessing, because
what was happening on my side of it was we had no idea that you had met this boy in the chat room. We had no idea you were having conversations with him. Your computer was in your room, which I think we removed it after this event. So we didn't know you'd met him. We knew you were contacting Ben. Ben lived in Australia, which was far away, calling him back and forth. So you told me you're going to be gone. You're going to take the car. That was the other thing. We had one car, and you were driving it.
Yep.
And you and I shared a car, and your father was out of town.
He was.
And he had the other car. So I'm home with the boys, and you say you're going to go hang out with your friend. About, 4 hours later or so, I call you, you don't answer. I'm calling, and you don't answer. And I finally called the house where the friend was, and they said, she was supposed to come over, but she never showed up today. And that sent me into some panic mode. Yeah. So I am now frantically trying to figure out where you might be and why you're not answering your phone. So at some point the day is going on. It's 6 hours later, 8 hours later, nothing. So I have no car, can't go look for you, new to Reading. Yep. I get this idea in my head that maybe wherever you are, you might have told your cousin the week before because you had been with your cousin. So I called him, threatened his life basically. Like, if you do not tell me, if you know anything about where she is right now, you need to tell me right now. And he finally blurts out, she met some guy in a chat room and she's meeting him today. Well, it was a parent nightmare. Yeah. It was a parent nightmare. So I'm now on the floor. I'm crying. I'm praying. I remember your brothers are sitting little Indian style next to me praying. They don't even know what they're praying for. I'm trying to get a hold of your dad. No answer because he's out of cell phone range. And so you're with this young, and I'm thinking you're not with a young man. I'm thinking every horror story of a parent is you've met some, crazy person, and he's saying he's a teenage boy, but he's really not. I'm picturing you in the trunk of a car on your way to Sacramento, and no one was there to stop me from thinking all these horrible thoughts that day. And I was just rolling in it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't paying attention. It's just amazing, like, how you change who you are when you believe a lie, and that's where it starts, which is totally where it all started. But here I am. I don't like scary movies at all. I have horrible nightmares. I still do as an adult. Like, I can't watch anything that's a little sketchy because I'm like, nope, I'm going to have a nightmare. But I am in this movie watching this horror film with this boy, and we end up going to lunch somewhere, and then
Did you know your mother had been calling you?
Yeah, I did. I did know that, and I ignored every phone call pretty much that came through. And so here we are. We've now ended up at a park, the same park that we met at. And at this point, I'd never really kissed a boy. I'd never done anything, like this. And so here I am in this park. It's dark. It's like 8 or 9 or so.
You've been gone now.
Hours. I mean, it's like 8 hours, something like that. And, we're making out on the car or whatever. I remember, again, there's no cars in the parking lot. It's super dark. And I remember this Camaro coming in, and the license plate says "From Chris."
Yes.
And I think,
no, that can't be.
That can't be the car that I know that who it belongs to, because it's just a coincidence there.
Yeah.
And
So what was happening on my end was I called Chris and Kathy Valton, really good friends of ours, and I'm like, something horrible's happened. I cannot find her. I don't have a car. I don't know what to do. She's met this boy. She's in a park somewhere. There's hundreds of parks in Reading. I don't know where to go. So Chris goes, what's her license plate number? I'm like, I have no idea. Where is that box? We had literally moved a couple weeks before. Then he gets off the phone with me, and he looks at Kathy and says, this is not good. This is really bad. And they start praying, and I call him back like, this is what kind of car it is. And they take off. They pray, God, show us.
Totally.
Show us where to go. And
he did.
And they drove right to you.
They did. They drove right to me. So here I am making out with this boy, and they pull up. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Talk about a prophetic culture. I'm like, gosh. Yeah, I was no hiding there. So here I am. And I remember they pulled up kind of behind my car a ways, and Chris yells out, Brittany, and I'm trying to hide because I'm like, no one's here, and why are they here, and why are they staying around my car? And he pulls up, and he yells my name, and I kind of pop my head behind my friend that I just met, and I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So Chris calls me over to the car and asks me what I'm doing, and I tell him I'm on a date. I'm on a date. I'm trying to convince him that I'm doing nothing wrong. And he looks at me and he goes, stay here with Kathy. And he gets out of the car and then walks over to this young man who I just met. And still to this day, I don't know what he said.
Yes, what? That's the big question. What did Chris say?
I don't know what he said at all. And I remember Kathy being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And I just kind of was in this instant mode of being defensive. Like, I got caught, and this is the best position. I put my boxing gloves on, and I'm ready to take down whoever wants to challenge me on whatever I was doing. So that's, and in that moment right there, it's kind of like I just didn't even care what I had done.
At home, after I called Chris and Kathy, and then they went around looking, when they found you, what was going on at home is Danny pulled up. So Danny gets home, and I haven't been able to reach him. He knows nothing. I've been pumped up with adrenaline for hours at this point. And he walks in, and the boys are like, Brittany's missing. We can't find her.
What great greeting for my dad to come home.
He's like, what? And so I try and catch him up really fast. And so he just picks up the phone and calls 911.
Yeah.
And he's describing to them his daughter.
Right.
And it was this crazy moment. Like, you could hear him on the phone, 5'2", brown hair, brown eyes. I mean, this can't be happening. You're having this feeling like, I can't find my daughter. She's fallen into this missing person. And we are just stressed out. And then right then, Kathy calls and says, she's right here.
Yeah, so I remember picking up my phone and seeing, I don't know, like 80-something missed calls. It was obnoxious. And Kathy's like, you need to call your parents. And I said, yeah, okay. So I remember her dialing the phone. And when I heard Dad's voice on the other end of it, I said, hey, it's me. I'm with Chris and Kathy. And he says, I was just telling the police what you look like.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment just being like, I didn't want to acknowledge the amount of pain that
Yeah.
I probably was causing you. I didn't want to give in to
Yeah.
any of that emotion because honestly, I knew that that would make me vulnerable
Right.
to hearing your pain, and I was afraid to go there
Yeah.
because I wanted to stay defensive. So
I remember saying, Kathy, would you please get in her car and drive her home? We were you had never done anything like this ever.
Yeah.
So we thought, who is this girl? You know, here's our daughter that we've youth group, friends, all church out. You know,
worship team,
yeah,
and
we're like,
leader, yeah.
And I tell people she fell over or tipped over and her brain fell out that day. I do not know what happened, but here we were. And so we were afraid to even have you get in the car.
Yeah.
We were like, Kathy, please drive her home because we don't know that she will come home.
Yeah, and I remember that. I remember Kathy saying, "Do you want to drive or do you want me to drive?" And I was so jacked up with, you know, this adrenaline and anxiety that I couldn't. I had a stick shift. I couldn't even hold the clutch in. My leg kept trembling. So Kathy drives me home, and I remember pulling in, and I get out of the car, and Chris had followed, and we come in, and you kind of meet in the garage, and I don't remember if it was you or Dad. But someone said, we'll meet you inside in a minute. And I go in and, you know, I'm kind of like, let's do this. Bring it on. Like, whatever you're going to throw at me, I'm ready to be right and I'm ready to stand my ground. It's like pretty much how I was. And I remember you were out with Chris and Kathy for a while in the garage. I don't know all that was going on except for probably them describing the horror of which I was doing before.
Yeah, this is what she was up to when we pulled in.
Yeah. So here I am just kind of waiting for what's about to be handed to me. And
You were loaded for bear. You were going to bring it.
I was going to bring it. You know, and I remember when I think you came in first and you know, we didn't have the best exchange in that moment. And it really is just that you were so afraid.
I'm stressed out of my mind. Yeah.
You had so much time to stew.
And I wanted to ask you questions like, where were you? What are you doing? What have you been? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
You know?
And so I remember your approach to me was just, it was fueling my fight mode. And,
Yeah.
you know, and so I remember Dad just telling you to just stop.
We sent the boys to their room.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting the duct tape out. That's how I felt like, okay, I need to duct tape my mouth because my personality is like, what's happening? And that wasn't going to help. Yeah. So I'm just like, just sit and be quiet. And that's if you can't say something good, don't say anything. Yeah. You'll have to clean it up later, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember just sitting there watching your exchange with your dad.
Yeah, this is such a moment that I remember I just remember sitting there so upset, so anxious, and so just ready to fight. And my dad just starts to ask me questions like, what are you doing? And why did you do this? And what's going on? And they launched into, you know, it is so hard being your kid and having so much pressure to be perfect. You know, you're the parenting people. Everybody looks to you for all the answers. I never do anything wrong. I'm tired of doing this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a Christian anymore. I'm all done with it.
I'm a Christian because
because
I was raised a Christian.
I don't believe in this. This is
Bible's
your
just
stuff.
a bunch of stories.
Yeah, and I just kind of, you know, you thought it was a bad day.
I know. We thought it was a bad day, and then we're just in a black hole falling.
Yeah, and so, you know, here I am pretty much just saying everything that you've been sowing into me, I hate, and I don't love, and I don't want anything to do with it. And we, again, had just moved to Redding, and you became the family life pastors of Bethel Church.
Yeah.
And
it was so exciting that the next day, we had to go to church, but go ahead,
So here we are. I remember after saying all of that, and Dad is just, I could see in his face all the pain and just all of the just discouragement in what I just delivered to him. And I remember him crawling across the floor and beginning to weep, and he put his head in my lap and he says, Brett, I will give it up all today. I will quit this job as being a pastor. I will go back and be, you know, a social worker. I'll give it all up if that's what you need. And the most important thing to me is that on the other end of this, you, your mom, and your brothers, we all end up on the other side together. That's the most important thing to me. And I will do whatever I can to make sure that happens. So if you need me to say no to this, I will. And I mean, when your father's crying in front of you and on your lap, I mean, even still to this day, I mean, it's been years later, and I still get emotional because I think just that that love and compassion for me and my needs and my heart at 16, which was this wild child moment. I remember experiencing it like, oh, I don't want to hear your heart, but I'm going to, because there's still that connection that's always been, instilled in me in the years prior. And so I said, I don't want you to quit your job. You don't have to do any of that. And I just don't know what I want. And so we all kind of went to bed, and I don't know how well you slept that night. I can't imagine that I slept very well myself. So like you were saying, the next day, of course, was
We got to go to church.
Sunday.
Woohoo!
Praise Jesus. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to worship after that. So, I didn't go to church that day.
No.
You guys did. I think this was way back when there was only like maybe 2 services
Yeah.
and only 1 campus.
No Bethel TV.
None of that. No. I remember sitting on the couch, and I think I'd taken a shower late, and I was sitting there watching some like girly movie, and all of a sudden Dad comes in, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, he's got to check on me. He doesn't really think I'm not going to hide or sneak away. I'm like, I don't even have a car.
We were in worship. I remember that at church, and we were both just standing there numb, like the most pain we've ever been through. And that whole exchange with your dad the night before he's just like, this whole idea of connection over this conflict, like him moving towards you, was crazy. And then when we were in church worshiping, he was just standing there. Yeah. Just his heart was not there. His heart was at home. So it's like, I just want to go be with Brittany. So he left.
And he came home, and I remember he said, I just couldn't be away from you again. I wanted to be close to you. And I sat down and put my legs up on his lap, and we just watched whatever.
The girly movie.
And, it just was this crazy moment. Again, you always say that was like a blip on the screen, because I did end up dating that boy. You let me date him. I remember that, which was a crazy experience. I dated him in our living room.
Yeah.
Really. Let's clarify there. Didn't date him anywhere but there. And, it was kind of your letting me see if this is really what I wanted, because you knew that I was going to figure out how to get it. And so if you didn't let me have it, I was going to probably get it in a much worse way.
Yeah.
And so this boy and I dated for about 4 months. And again, I mentioned earlier on in the story how I met Ben from Australia, and Ben and I had met years prior to this moment. And Ben was coming to visit. He's really the hero in the story, but Ben was coming to visit. And I remember we went to meet my boyfriend at the time's parents in Sacramento, and the next day Ben was coming, and I didn't care about how I looked or what I was doing that next day when we were meeting him. And I think I had my hair in some sloppy bun and a t-shirt and no makeup. And again, last time I saw Ben, I was taller than him, so it had been a while. And Ben comes down the stairs, and I remember thinking, whew, that boy, he's looking good. I like how he looks, that's for sure. I remember just being in awe of this young man and not anymore this little boy. And then I quickly remembered I had no makeup on, and my hair was crazy, and I was like, we got to fix that. And so
Priorities.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember going in and fixing my hair and everything, and we drove home. But what was such a crazy experience is that in that moment, all of a sudden, everything that I was reminded of what I really actually wanted kind of came flooding in and hit me in the face. And
the thing about, that whole time of those 3 or 4 months was you started going to church again, and we contacted our youth pastors, and you were hanging out with Gabe.
Yeah.
Gabe and Leah were pastoring and banding, and CJ and others, and you were involved. You weren't mean to us. You weren't punishing us, but you didn't really have a moment with the Lord yet. You hadn't really repented, and you kind of turned around, and you were in relationship, but you hadn't moved forward. And so Ben, who loves the Lord and loves church and worship, so we're in worship, and you disappeared one day.
Yeah, and so, pretty much, again, Ben just kind of reminded me of everything that was always in my heart that I longed for and wanted. And so I remember leaving, and Brian was singing his song Undone, which was, gosh, that was a long time ago. And I leave, and I go outside. I'm trying to get in the prayer chapel, which is locked, and it's raining. And I remember my mascara's running on my face, and I just look like a hot mess. And I remember walking around the prayer chapel and just kind of having this overwhelming feeling of the Holy Spirit and just this thing I missed. And all of a sudden, I just have this encounter, and I just said, Lord, I will be with you forever. I will serve you all the days of my life. I will chase after your heart. Just always keep this thing that I want with me, which was really been, like what I wanted in my life, what I saw my life being, you know. And I came back to the Lord. I remember coming in after worship and seeing Dad in the back end, embracing him for the first time. And I think that moment means so much to me because I was longing for that, but I just never gave into it. And so here I am hugging my father, who's just, you know, this earthly representation of our God in heaven, and just this beautiful encounter. And it all ended really well. I'm totally ruining my makeup, but that's okay, you know, whatever. And really this story is, you know, chasing after your kid's heart in that place of conflict. Like Dad was waiting for me, knowing that I was going to figure this out. I was going to get there. I was going to do this, you know, that the Lord was going to meet me and something crazy was going to happen. And Dad was there waiting for me to resolve that place of conflict, but he pursued it in the midst of this crazy conflict. You know, if I could say anything to you out there that are, you know, dealing with disconnects and just conflicts, is to chase after your kids, to pursue their hearts. You know, no matter how big this mess is, you have to love them, and you have to love them big, and you have to love them endlessly. So chase after that connection, and remember, you can do this. You know, you can pull on heaven and to give you that guidance for that unconditional love.
What a story! I'm sure that some of you, this story revealed a few things that you hope to do differently moving forward. For others, this story encouraged you to keep doing the things you've been doing to pursue connection and keep your love on with your child, even if they don't seem to be having great results yet. The message here is, don't quit. Keep pursuing your child's heart with the heart of the Father.